Now welcome to another Let's Talk Some Star Wars, where this time we'll be taking a look at and discussing the results of two different polls. One asking if you're watching Andor Season 2, and the other asking if you are watching it, what you think of it. I'll also then be reading and responding to a few of the comments left on both of the polls. And so, wasting no time, getting right to it, let's take a look at the results of the first one. Are you watching Andor Season 2? And 67% of those who responded said, I'm absolutely watching it or definitely will at some point. Another 11% said, I'll probably watch it or give it a try, or I am giving it a try right now. Then there were 9% who said, I probably won't be watching it, but I could possibly change my mind. And then 13% who said, I have no intention on watching it now or ever. Moving on over to what people who are watching it think about it so far, or think of the first arc or the first 3 episodes, well, 49% said they were fantastic. 35% said they were pretty good. 11% said they were okay or average or kind of mid. And then there were 5% who said they were pretty bad. Alright, so I will start out by saying what I pretty much always say when I do these poll videos. This is just my audience. This is what people who watch my videos are saying or voting. A different channel with different views might get some very, very drastically different results, so always keep that in mind. But it is interesting to look at these results and to compare them to other recent shows, the previous 2 shows to come out, which were The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. I did similar polls for all of those shows. Hell, I've done similar polls for all of the shows from Disney Plus over the years. But if we take a look at the Andor Season 2, the Are You Watching It question, it seems like roughly 22% of people likely aren't going to watch it or definitely aren't going to watch it. Maybe about a quarter if we figure some in the I'll probably watch it or give it a try category dip down into that. Or it could be the other way. It could be some that probably won't watch it, may watch it. Basically, somewhere between, it feels like 25 to 20% of people who voted are not going to watch the show. And if we compare that to The Acolyte, what I got for the 7th episode, that's the one I grabbed for some reason, it was 65% of people saying haven't watched it or don't plan on watching it. So roughly 2/3 compared to maybe roughly a quarter or a fifth of people. So that is a drastic improvement over that show, at least again from my audience. Then there's Skeleton Crew, which for the 8th episode saw 55% of people say, I'm not watching the show, which went down as time went on for that series. It started around 65% of people saying they're not watching it, so that saw an improvement. Either way, it seems that pretty much no surprise, from me at least, again, from my audience, that many more people are going to give Andor Season 2 a try over The Acolyte or Skeleton Crew. Not that I thought Skeleton Crew was bad. As I always say, if you are someone who resubscribed recently to watch Andor, I would recommend giving it a chance. If you don't like it, that is absolutely fine. But do yourself a favor, if you're paying the subscription fee right now for Andor, just give it a watch and see what you think. Moving on then to what people who watched the first 3 episodes thought of them, and it is interesting to note that less than half the number of people voted in this poll than voted in the other one, in the Are You Watching It poll, even though that one came out after, which tends to tell me people are being honest here, that I'm not just getting people voting negatively or positively, I suppose either way. I would think and hope and guess this is actually people who have seen it and what they think of it. Sure, you're always going to have that person who maybe hates it and votes or hasn't seen it yet and votes, whatever. Either way, my point is this feels like it might be a pretty accurate representation of what people who are actually watching it think. And half of them thought the first 3 episodes were fantastic. Another 35% thought they were good. So the vast majority of people here, roughly 85% of people, liked these first 3 episodes. And then you have another 11% who maybe thought they weren't the greatest, and then the 5% who thought they were bad. But overall, this looks like a really positive start for Andor Season 2. Especially considering we have heard from the early reviews from those who have seen the whole season that the first arc, the first 3 episodes were the slowest and not the best overall, and that it only gets better and better as it goes on. So this is a good sign that this is about to be a fantastic season. Alright, and moving on now to some comments. Again, we got 2 polls here, so I'll try to grab a few from each one, a few comments from each one. But before we do, I just need to say thank you to everybody who votes, comments, or watches these or any of my videos across both the channels. Thank you so much for that. Also, a huge thank you to those who support my channel on Patreon and make my Discord server, if I may say, the best place on the internet to talk some Star Wars. And if you want in there, if you want to talk some more Andor, $1 on Patreon or more, we'll get you in there, and you can talk at any time, and every Thursday night, you can literally talk some Star Wars with me. You can literally talk some Andor. It's always a lot of fun, especially when we have a great show like Andor to talk about. But anyway, let's move now to some comments, and we'll start with the Are You Watching It poll. And we, of course, kick it off with the top-rated comment from that poll, which comes to us from Wick Deline, who said, "Talk about a night and day difference between this show's polls and The Acolyte." And yeah, that is certainly true. If we again look at the poll for The Acolyte, we will see that, well, again, 2/3 of people weren't watching it. And of those that were, only 2% thought it was really good, though you do have to inflate that a little bit to remove the number of people not watching it. So it's actually more like 6% or something that thought it was good among those who watched it. Either way, that doesn't really compare all that well to the nearly half the number of people watching Andor who enjoyed it, or Andor Season 2. And again, if you're someone who enjoyed The Acolyte, that is perfectly fine. I don't have anything against you. You can like what you like. But when I compare the two shows, just the quality of the writing, it is not even close. Even things like the set designs, costumes, everything in Andor feels top-notch. Whereas The Acolyte, which actually cost about the same, I believe. The Acolyte had a crazy inflated budget. It was like $260 million, if I'm remembering right. Whereas I believe Andor is about in that same ballpark for more episodes and longer episodes. You just can't help but wonder where The Acolyte spent all that money and what went so wrong with it. Alright, let's move on to this comment now from Dolfan, who said, "People as a whole need to get used to that Star Wars is not just a single genre of entertainment. It's not just action, it's not just dogfights, it's not just drama. It's a universe of different genres all based in the Star Wars universe. Andor is not going to be for everyone, and that's okay. I enjoy Andor for its serious take on the societal effects the Empire is taking on people from all walks of life." And I agree with this, and it's actually something I've kind of changed my mind about over the years. Even though I am a huge fan of the EU, I've read a lot of books, so it's already not jarring to me to see, I guess, different types of Star Wars, that not everything Star Wars is about Jedi and lightsabers and big space battles and all that. So I'm already conditioned just by reading a ton of Star Wars books to accept different types of stories in Star Wars, and the books oftentimes are much more serious or have a bit more depth to them than the movies ever do or could, because of the time a book has to just explore different things. And so I'm already used to things like Andor in a manner of speaking. I'm not trying to sound like elitist, like I read the books, so nothing like that. I totally get people who have only really watched the movies and then trying to watch something like Andor, and it feels very jarring. I would say that the movies are a genre unto themselves. The Lucas movies, you could certainly say that is its own kind of very unique space opera mixed with a little bit of fantasy, action, adventure. They are all these things, and they are a unique genre unto themselves. I think Star Wars movies, the Lucas movies, are something just different. And I don't know that everything, and again, this is something I've kind of changed my mind about over the years, but I don't know that everything needs to fall into that category. I think you can expand into just different types of Star Wars shows. I think Star Wars can become more of a setting than, again, a genre onto itself. And I think that's the only way Star Wars can or could have survived going forward. I think if they had just, say again with the EU, if every book had just tried to mimic what the movies do, I don't know that that works very well. I even think that's actually part of the problem with the Ahsoka series, that it tries very hard to mimic the movies instead of trying to be more like a series. Filoni himself even talked about how he always has to keep the action going, he has to keep the pace going, and I don't agree with that. I really think trying to make it too much like the George Lucas movies, though maybe some people very much appreciate that, and I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think a series is good because it has more time to explore characters, it has more time to slow down and be, or have more depth. And that is what I love about Andor, that it does slow down. It slows down maybe too much for some people, again, if you're used to the movies especially. But anyway, before I keep rambling about this question, all I'm saying is I think there is a genre called Star Wars movies, and I think Star Wars itself can also be a setting for many other different types of stories. All right, one more comment from this poll, and it comes to us from Ross Burney, who said, "Re-signed up for Disney Plus just to watch this thing. Vote with your wallets, right? That's what I'm doing. They need to be rewarded for the good things." And yeah, I agree with this one too. I understand some people out there are done with Star Wars altogether, or just hate Disney and don't want to give them a dime of your money, and that's fine. I understand that. You do you. You vote with your wallet that way. Perfectly acceptable. But then there are those who, maybe you've liked some things, you haven't liked others, or you just haven't fully given up hope, even though you haven't liked much. So I would certainly recommend when something that you do enjoy comes out, and it doesn't have to be Andor necessarily, but whatever you like, make sure you do resubscribe for Disney Plus when that comes out. I'm not trying to tell you how to spend your money or anything, but it's like training a dog, right? You have to reinforce good behavior and punish bad behavior. So if they see a ton of people subscribe to Disney Plus for Andor, and then maybe leave right after Andor, they're going to understand that, oh, this is what people want. People want quality shows. What a shock, I know. So yeah, if you like it, support it, let them know what is good, let them know what is bad. That is the best way to speak to Disney, through your wallet, via their profits, via their bottom line. If, again, they see people are subscribing and watching Andor, that means they will understand to do more like that and less like The Acolyte. All right, moving on now to the other poll, the what you thought of the first 3 episodes poll. That top comment comes to us from Think Again, who said, very reminiscent of the first arc in season 1, a bit slow but sets up the season well. The best scene, in my opinion, was Mon drunk dancing as she realizes that she's most likely about to lose everything she once had for the rebellion. Can't wait to see what happens next. And yeah, I can agree with that it feels kind of reminiscent of the first arc, where it is not exactly the most blistering pace ever. Though I will say, I very much believe and very much appreciated how they opened the arc up with the theft of the TIE Avenger. That kind of felt like classic Star Wars, where you just kind of get thrown into a situation. You don't need all the details. You don't need to know how Andor got here, what his preparation was, or anything about this Imperial technician who's helping Cassian and who is afraid. It has that traditional Star Wars feeling of being dropped into the middle of things and then everything goes from there. Again, I like that. I appreciate that. I think that was a good way to start an arc that was, yeah, a bit on the slower side, where we have things like a wedding and a dinner party and farm life and all these other things, which not the most exciting things in and of themselves, even though they are very good and exciting when you realize all the intrigue that goes into them. But anyway, yeah, a little bit of a slower start, but I really think, and based on what we've heard, things are going to progressively get faster and more intense. All right, next comment comes to us from Hader Beck, who said, jungle stuff definitely could have been done better. Feels like they overplayed a little the idea of these crews' incompetence. It's not bad, but by Andor's standards, it seems weak. Besides that, everything was great. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think they may have gone a little too far in how incompetent and how kind of selfish and how standoffish they immediately became. Now, yes, I do think in dire situations like that, you've just come back from a losing battle, you've seen people you care about killed, you have no leader, you're hungry, you're thirsty, you're in the middle of a jungle somewhere, you have no way to escape. I do think things can fall apart rather quickly in that situation. Maybe they do kind of fall apart a bit too quickly, but I do think they're trying to make a point, that Gilroy is trying to make a point about just how rough the early rebellion has it, how fragile everything is, that it just takes one loss and suddenly anything that united you is just gone. You're now willing to fight against the people you were fighting with a moment ago. You're ready to kill them for your own survival. The idea of fighting the Empire is now long gone. It's just about trying to survive to the next day. All right, and the last comment we're going to do here is from AM Scott 91, who said, didn't feel like I got to develop an emotional response before they would cut to another plot. Editing was jarring. I get contrast and I like the scenes individually, but even at the end of episode 3, there didn't seem to be a cumulative logic. No domino sensation that made season 1 so compelling, episode to episode and arc to arc. Yeah, I agree with the cutting. It was very abrupt, especially when you go back and you're watching it and trying to do a review of it. You're trying to kind of go scene by scene and you realize, wow, that scene lasted about a minute and this scene lasted 2 minutes and then we had 30 seconds here. And you're like, I can't really try to do this scene by scene. It doesn't make sense. But anyway, I do agree it kind of cuts very abruptly at times. And I think in episode 3, that's intentional. You're trying to overlay the wedding with what's happening with Bix and everybody on Mina Rao. I get that. But there are other times when you really feel like you're cutting for no apparent reason back and forth. I don't think it was bad. I don't know that it was jarring enough where you couldn't enjoy the episodes, but it does seem a little bit different than season 1. Season 1 oftentimes has you linger a lot longer on certain scenes. You're there for 4, 5, 6 minutes, maybe a little less, maybe even a little more. It doesn't usually have the 1 minute here, 1 minute there, 1 minute here kind of thing, which was going on in this episode or these episodes quite a bit, especially the second episode. The second episode cuts back and forth a lot. And again, the third one does too, but mainly towards the end when they're just trying to overlay or juxtapose those two different situations. All right, I think that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below. Tell me if you're watching Andor, and if you are, what you thought of these first 3 episodes. Or you can ask a question for a lightning response video, or leave whatever kind of Star Wars comment you want down there. Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below. Let's talk some Star Wars, and until next time, thanks for watching.